and welcome to my podcast of Art, Animals, and Spirit, episode number 1, A Midnight Horse Rescue. Hello, this is Shelley Devine, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I am a psychic medium, a Reiki master, a professional artist, and a #1 best-selling author. The following is a true story filled with bravery, compassion, intuition, and the deep connection between animals and humans. I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Have you ever found yourself in a moment so surreal it felt like you were dreaming? When I was a kid, I faced one of the most terrifying yet magical and unforgettable experiences of my life. A midnight rescue that showed me how intuitive and brave I really was. I think I was about 14 years old when my mother and I moved to a tiny trailer behind a horse stables in Prescott, Arizona. We had been living in the car. We were homeless for a short period of time. So when we found this trailer, of course, it wasn't the most beautiful thing, but it was a roof over our heads. The place was crawling with bugs and other nasty critters, of course, since we were in the desert. One night I was sleeping in my tiny bed across the trailer from my mom's room when a little moth flew into my ear. I screamed because it was stuck in there, and I could hear it fluttering in my ear. The sound and the feeling were horrible. After several attempts to dig it out with my finger, my mom quickly heated up some cooking oil until it was warm and then poured it into my ear to drown the moth. It worked. It felt weird, but it worked, and the oil, along with the moth, finally drained out of my ear. On another occasion, I walked out the front door of our little trailer, and there was a tarantula blocking my path. I froze. Then slowly, as slow as I could manage, I backed up and shut the door. My heart was pounding in my chest. Yes, I am terrified of tarantulas. I waited inside for him to pass. He was actually a pretty small one. He was probably just a baby. Still, I chose not to mess with him. One night, I was awakened by the sound of hooves galloping around. I lay in my bed wondering if I was dreaming. I looked at the clock. It was midnight, and I heard horses whinnying. They sounded really close. There was more than one, so I realized some horses may have gotten loose from the stables down the hill. I jumped out of bed to check on my mare, Chelsea. I ran out into the darkness and heard voices and hoofbeats all around. I checked and saw that Chelsea was still safely in her pen. My realization was true, however. It was the horses from the stables. Without hesitation, I tried to help catch them. I carefully made my way in the pitch blackness that surrounded me. The bushes and shrubs kept scratching at me as I weaved my way into the thick topography. My heart was pounding in my ears, and the adrenaline was running through me. I did my best to help round up the horses. They were excited and scared, so catching them was not easy. But once all the horses were caught and put back into their corrals, I turned around and made my way carefully back up the hill to my trailer. We had no exterior lights, so it was really, really dark. As I picked my way up the path, I heard a horse sneeze or nicker or some sort of sound. I knew it wasn't Chelsea because she was still in her pen behind my trailer. No, this sound was close to me, and on the path leading up to the trailer, I stopped in my tracks, and I listened intently. I felt drawn to a certain area and started slowly towards it. I desperately tried to get my eyes to adjust to the blackness. Finally, I thought I saw a dark silhouette, and it was a horse. Yeah, it was a horse in the bushes. He wasn't moving or trying to run from me, and I instantly knew something was wrong. The area by those bushes was fenced with barbed wire. I slowly inched towards the horse, who was clearly frightened, but stood perfectly still. I talked to him very softly and let him know that I was there to help. I took a deep breath and released any fear or tension I was feeling. I did this for a minute before I reached up to touch the horse. I slowly reached out into the darkness until I felt him. He was breathing heavy and sweating. I carefully ran my hands all over him, starting at the rear and working my way up to his head. He didn't try to move away from me, so that told me what was wrong. It was so dang dark, I just couldn't see anything. So I slowly ran my hands down his front legs, knowing what I would find: barbed wire. The poor guy had both his front legs caught in the fencing. I called out for someone to come help, but no one heard me. And I couldn't leave him there alone to go get help. That just didn't feel right. I knew I had to get this horse untangled by myself, in the darkness. I carefully reached down and freed one leg at a time by pulling the wire apart, using and lifting his leg out. Thankfully, although it took some time, I managed to free him completely. I had cut up my hands pretty good on the barbed wire, and I'm sure the horse had some deep cuts. Although we were both a bit bloody from the barbs, there didn't seem to be any serious injuries. Now that he was free of the wire, he just stood there next to me patiently and breathed in my ear. I wondered how to lead him down the path to the barn with no halter. I couldn't risk leaving him there while I went to grab a halter. I was afraid he would run right back into the barbed wire. So I grabbed a bit of his mane and gently tugged to see if he would follow, and he did. I felt the deep trust he had in me. He was so appreciative that I helped him. He just hung his head down and let me lead him back to the stables by his mane. The guys at the stables were shocked to see me leading a horse into the barn in my pajamas and bare feet, and probably a little bloody here and there. They thanked me, and I gave the horse a little kiss on his face, then tucked him in his stall. I walked home under the stars and felt pretty proud of myself. I felt guided and protected by a higher power during this whole thing. I felt the gratitude of the horse and the unbreakable connection between us. I had always felt a deep understanding of animals and their ability to communicate and trust. They can sense the gentle, compassionate energy I have. I've always been able to communicate with animals. I still do. Many times I have given readings to people when their pets come through with a message for them. It's always a fun surprise for my clients. And sometimes they even start asking if I can bring through another fur baby of theirs. And yes, I always do. Sometimes our greatest acts of courage come when we least expect them. And often animals remind us of the strength and compassion that we are capable of. I encourage you, my listeners, to reflect on moments in your lives when you felt deeply connected to animals or pushed beyond your limits to try to help another being. I am so grateful to my listeners for joining me on this deeply personal journey. I would love to hear about your own stories of animal encounters or acts of courage. Who knows? Maybe I'll read your story on my podcast. Wouldn't that be fun? Email me at art.animals.spirit@gmail.com and send me your stories or ask me questions, whatever. I just would love to hear from you. I hope you'll join me next week for another story of art, animals, and spirit. This is Shelley Devine signing out. Thanks again for listening.